The next thing that we want to take a look at is when you have an image and you can see red veins within the eye. It's not uncommon at all, and this really isn't something you want to address, again, unless you have a close shot. If the model is 15, 20, 25 feet away, don't waste your time doing this. But in a case where you have a tight shot, it's definitely worthwhile to come in and remove the veins. Now, like everything else inside of Photoshop, there's 50 different ways that you can do this. And I'm going to show you what I think is the way that's going to give you the best results in a consistent manner. There's more complicated techniques, there's different tools that you could use, but at the end of the day, I find that this technique seems to work best in the majority of situations. So, what we're going to do is zoom into the subject here, and we want to zoom in pretty close into the eye. We want to create a new layer. Now, we could select a whole bunch of tools here. We could go with the Spot Healing Brush tool. We could go with the Clone Stamp tool. Each of those tools tend to introduce their own set of problems. So I find the brush tool to work best. So go ahead and select the brush tool. V is the keyboard shortcut. And what you want to do is select a soft-edged brush. And in terms of the size, it really depends on the resolution of your file. You want the brush size to be similar to the thickness of the vein. And then what you're going to do is sample color next to the vein. So it's similar to the Clone Stamp tool, except you're just sampling one color. Now, as we look at these eyes, we can see that there's a little bit of a blue color cast to them. That's okay. We're not concerned about that right now. Our concern, of course, is just getting rid of these veins. So before we start painting, we want to sample some color from the eye. And you can do that easily by holding down the Option key on your keyboard when you have the brush tool selected. You'll notice the eyedropper tool becomes active, and click to sample that color. Then what you want to do is make sure that the opacity is reduced for the brush. Now, much like layers, how they have opacity, some of the tools in Photoshop also have opacity. So in this case, we want the opacity to definitely be less than 100%. Then you want to come over and just start painting. You want to start painting with that color, and you may have to go over the vein more than once. And again, your opacity would ultimately determine that. But as you can see, you're kind of just getting rid of that vein. Now, it's not uncommon to sample the wrong area of the eye. You're not going to do it perfectly every single time. If that's the case, just undo the steps or go to your history panel and go back a few steps to get rid of those brush strokes and just paint in with a different color. So I'm going to go ahead and sample a different color here as I get closer to the edge of the eye. So holding down the Option key on the keyboard, I'll go ahead and click, and then I'll continue to paint. And you're just kind of getting rid of those veins. Now, you want to spend the time to do this as precisely as possible. You want to do this all over the eye, obviously, and you don't want to forget about the other eye. You want to come over and do the same thing to the other eye as well. Now, as we do this, you may notice that we're kind of flattening out the eye a little bit. We're losing some texture. And of course, we're going to be doing that because we're painting with a color. So I'm just sampling color and painting over those red veins. And like I said, I'm losing some texture here. So something that you can do once you're all done getting rid of the red veins, I'll just go over here and get rid of this vein on this side. And again, you want to zoom in, and you also want to paint probably multiple strokes over a particular vein. But when all said and done, and you're happy with the results from the retouching, to add a little bit more texture back to the image, what you want to do is come over to the filter menu. And from the filter menu, you can choose noise. And from here, you can select add noise. This will open up a dialog box, of course. You want to add 1% of uniform monochromatic noise. Go ahead and click OK. And once you click OK, you've added a little bit more texture to that area. Now, you may be somewhat confused because we applied it to what looks like the entire image, but that's not necessarily the case because we applied that filter to the active layer, and this active layer only has those few brush strokes that we've added. So here we can already see we're improving the eye. This is the before, and this is the after. Like I said, I find this to be the best technique. It's not the only technique. You may find something that works better for you, but I tend to find this to be a fairly reliable way of removing veins. And finally, I just want to leave you with the fact that you want to make sure that you're doing this on images that are tightly cropped to the subject's face. You don't want to waste your time doing this where you have the entire body of the model in frame. You just need it on these tighter shots where it will make a difference. So there you have it. I find this to be the best technique.